Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So today we will be discussing the Gospel of Holy Mother. Inadvertently, the university Swamiji sent me a link saying that the Gita class is there today. So I just forwarded it. Then he sent a message, no, it is gospel. So that's why I had to change that and send you a fresh link. That's why perhaps people could not join on time. Anyway, I'll begin now. We were discussing, as you know, we are taking this class alternately. On alternate Saturdays, we have Bhagavad Gita, which is conducted by the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda University, Belur. And on the alternate Saturdays, on which there is no Gita class, I take the Gospel of Holy Mother. The time is same, 4:45 Greenwich Mean Time and 10:15 Indian Standard Time, IST. So now we are discussing the conversation. We'll be discussing today the conversation that took place on 25th June in Udbodhan. It was morning, 25th June 1912. The mother was seated near the bedstead in the room adjacent to the shrine. We were engaged in conversation. Disciple. Now, disciple is, as you all know, is Ras Bihari Maharaj, who who is also known as Swami Arupananda, because of whom we have got all these wonderful conversations, who has recorded most of the conversations which were recorded by monks. There are other reminiscences or other conversations which were recorded by Sarada Devi, and there were other women devotees of Holy Mother, but these were recorded by Ras Bihari Maharaj, who was then a brahmachari, and he was initiated by Holy Mother, and he used to get an opportunity to come now and then to Belur Mutt, from Belur Mutt to Udbodhan. So that's why whenever he came to Udbodhan, that is Mayarbadi, the house which was built by Swami Sharadananda for Holy Mother, exclusively for her stay. You all know that Udbodhan was built by taking a loan, which was slowly repaid by Swami Sharadanandji by selling his Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasang, the great biography. So before that, Holy Mother used to stay in different places. She had no place. She stayed in rented places. She stayed in Balram Bose's house. So it is rather sad that, or most of the time, she stayed in Jairambati also, occasionally. So she had no permanent place to stay. It was only in 1910 that Shardananji completed the building and she shifted to Udbodhan. So this conversation is taking place on June 25th, 1912. So the disciple Arupananda is asking, some say that it is not good for sadhus, that is of the Ramakrishna order, to work in sevashramas, that is homes of service, and dispensaries, or to be preoccupied with selling books, accounting, and so forth. As you know, most of the activities of our Indian centers, the centers which are there in India, are predominantly service oriented activities. A large number of hospitals are there, there are dispensaries, there are different activities going on there. There are these book sales, and it involves a lot of money, lot of donations come, and naturally one has to keep accounts of that, and it is the accounts are meticulously maintained. There is a two-tier audit system in the mission, and you will find that the Ramakrishna mission, right from the days of Swami Vivekananda, was very particular that they should keep proper accounts of the public money they receive. the donations that they receive either from the devotees or the well-wishers or donors or even the government funds. So whatever funds are given for whatever purpose they are given, they have to be accounted for. But that involves a lot of so-called secular activity. But here, Holy Mother is telling something very significant. She wants to convey to Rasbihari Maharaj that those people who say that I am too busy with work or I have to do all these activities and I don't find time for japa meditation, especially japa, she did not agree with that. So, this conversation, Rasbihari Maharaj is asking a question which is normally asked by many of our monks who sometimes get tired by doing a lot of so called secular work, whether it is within the organization or relief activities or humanitarian activities outside the organization. Like in emergencies, we have relief work, we have so many activities which are going on. So the question was of great importance even in those days when these activities were started, and especially the Banaras Sevashram had been started. It is one of the oldest hospitals which was started by Swami Vivekananda himself. He had inspired it and he wanted a home of service. It is not known as a hospital, it is known as home of service. That is the idea. So, though it is a hospital, it has the OPD and they have their inpatients, also a lot of inpatients and outpatients. There are dispensaries of various kinds, all sorts of surgeries go on there. And it is one of the oldest hospital in that region. And everybody, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, is treated. So Holy Mother also visited, and there is a note, 10 rupee note, which she donated. They have preserved it, nicely preserved it. So there were some devotees like Master Mahashay himself, the chronicler of the gospel, because he used to always be with Sri Ramakrishna, was always used to say God realization is the only goal of life. But he did not know that sometimes some of the conversations which are not recorded in the gospel, he gave specific instructions to Narendranath, who was to be the head of the monastic order of the Ramakrishna order. Ramakrishna order of monks and also the Ramakrishna movement as such comprises of both devotees as well as volunteers and also monks. But how to run the monastery, the specific advice that was given by Sri Ramakrishna to Swamiji, and later on Swamiji formulated these rules, where service activity formed a major part of its activities. So, Sri Ramakrishna, now this question was asked by Ras Bihari Maharaj, who wanted to know whether it is good to be preoccupied with such duties as keeping accounts or running dispensaries. Dispensaries and hospitals, if you see, most of our hospitals in India, especially the Seva Pratishthan, the Brindavan Hospital, there are so many hospitals, even the Bombay Hospital. They are always full of patients, and there's a lot of uh, apparently conflicting ideas. You lose your peace of mind, and the monks there themselves have to work in several administrative posts. Sometimes some of our monks who are doctors have to actually uh, do the medical work directly. So the question now asked by Rasbihari Maharaj is, did the master ever undertake such activities? Because he saw Sri Ramakrishna was just content to meditate, to give instructions, sing songs, and they saw that Sri Ramakrishna never, except for one or two incidents where he told Mathur Babu to serve the poor at Devgar, they had not observed Sri Ramakrishna doing these activities. Whereas Swamiji, after coming back from the West when he started the mission, even before that, Swami Vivekananda wanted to start these activities, and with Swami Akhandananda, he started famine relief activities. He also started the dispensary, the hospitals, which was in a very, uh, it was they had a very small beginning when Swamiji was there, the Sevashram, but now it has grown into a very big hospital. So also there are other hospitals. So this was in 1912 when quite a few dispensaries, the Kankhal Sevashram also had started, the hospital which Swami Vivekananda inspired his disciple Kalyanananda to start, who was a doctor himself. So he said, did the master ever undertake such activities? Works of this kind are thrust upon the seekers who enter the order with a yearning for realization of God. So this is a question. It's a wrong question, but still Rasbihari Maharaj is expressing the doubts expressed by some of the monks or some of the brahmacharis, novices, who are not aware of the ideals of the Ramakrishna Math or mission. So he says, works of these kind, when these novices come, they are forced to work in these hospitals, and then they feel that we have come to this ashrama or this mutt or sevashrama to do spiritual practices, and we hardly get time for japa and spiritual practices. The rest of the day we have to work like any other householder would do who has taken up a job. So are we to do the same toil? Are we to do the same job? That is the question. So he says people who are have a yearning for realization of God, if they come and then they find they have to do this work, is it right? Because Thakur apparently, that is Rasbihari Maharaj's observation. So he says Thakur apparently didn't do all these activities himself. So are we following Thakur? That was the question. So now let us see what Mother answers. Then he says, if anyone must do some work, it must be worship in the shrine, meditation, japa, and devotional music. Other activities entangle one in desires and turn one away from God. So that was the common feeling in the initial days when these activities were new. People, especially traditional Indian monasteries, had not started this kind of charitable work. Swami Vivekananda was the first to point out that it was his master who told him to serve God in man. So this was a new religion, or maybe a new approach to religion, a new approach to spirituality, which was introduced by Swami Vivekananda in the order. And that is the reason why we find so many humanitarian or activities going on in the Ramakrishna mission. So, but his argument was that such activities, if you are involved day and night in these hospital activities, then how can one meditate on God? So now I remember, of course, let us first see what Mother answers, then I'll tell you what Srimad Swami Vireshwaran used to tell regarding this. So Holy Mother says, you must pay no heed to those who talk in this manner. So very clearly, Mother at the outset, she is telling very clearly to this brahmachari, never have that idea that this work is a burden. If you think this work is a burden, then she says, what will you do day and night if you are not engaged in work? What are you going to do? Is it possible for you to meditate for 24 hours a day? And even if you can, I don't think you will be able to do it. Even if you have that spare time, will you be able to devote your whole life to meditation and japa? Can one practice meditation and japa for 24 hours? You referred to our master. Means Rasbihari Maharaj had asked Holy Mother that the master never did this. He was 24 hours busy in japa and all those singing and talking about God and all those things. His case was different. So Mother is making a clear distinction that you can't imitate these incarnations. You should follow what they advise and not just try to blindly imitate because their capacity is different. Mathur used to Mathur used to supply him with proper diet. You are able to get your food because you are doing some work. Otherwise, you would have to roam from door to door begging for a morsel of food. Now, this is what Swami Vivekananda also said. No doubt there were traditional orders where you were not supposed to stay in a monastery or uh, have all these establishments like food and all those things. You had to beg from door to door. That was the traditional. In that case, uh, they don't have to do any work because they are just by getting whatever food, like Totapuri, used to just beg whatever he used to get, he used to eat and manage with that. So if you are able to do that, Holy Mother is saying, then it is okay. You can avoid work. But if you take food in the monastery, if you are doing some kind of, then you have to justify your stay in the monastery by doing some work. Otherwise, you would have to roam from door to door begging for a morsel of food. Perhaps you would fall ill. Besides, where are the people today to give alms to the sadhus? So a new trend was being started in society, and Swami Vivekananda recognized that. And Holy Mother, you see, she was so wise that she gave such a wonderful answer, very practical answer. She is not saying that the traditional monks who wander from door to door, beg for a morsel of food, and sit in a cave or maybe under a tree and meditate. People like Totapuri who came to Thakur, they were living like that. They were not practicing any activity or doing any humanitarian work. But that ideal was different, and that ideal would not be valid in this new yuga. Holy Mother knew that. She says, the mud, besides, where are the people to give alms to the sadhus now? So even Swami Vivekananda, he went to the West. He perhaps thought, like in India, there were still places where you could go and beg for food, and they used to give food to the sadhus, especially in Uttarakhand and all those places. But in many places where the Western civilization had reached, this idea of begging for food was practically vanished from our country. So Swamiji says, I mean, Holy Mother says, Holy Mother anticipated that as early as 1912. She's saying, people will not give food these days to sadhus. So never pay attention to such words. Things will go on as the master directs. The mutt will be run on these lines. Those who cannot adjust themselves will have to go away. So she was so strict, such a strict administrator. So she could understand the psychology of the people who would come here and then not justify their stay by taking all the advantages of the Sevashrama. So she wanted everybody, and she said, whatever Naren has started, it is fine. And whatever he did was done because he had the foresight to know that you have to pay back to society. So that's the reason why all these activities, so much of humanitarian work is done. And moreover, that is also a means to attaining spirituality. You can do it by work, you can do it by worship. So there are four ways, as I told you, there are four ways how one can approach God. There's no one fixed way. Swami Vivekananda did not want. He wanted a harmony of all the four yogas. Since we are involved more or less in all the activities of the mind, activities, we have the power to think. Every human being has a power to think, a power to will, a power to feel, and a power to control the mind, that is, power to restrain. So these are the four powers of the mind which have to be utilized fully so that there is a balanced mind. You have to exercise your willpower. That means you have to work. So whatever type of work you do, you have to do it as karma yoga. If you have to think and think of the nature of your work, why you should do that work, how you should do that work, and what is the goal of your life. So all this is jnana yoga, the discrimination with which you decide what attitude a person should have when he is doing his daily duties. What is my role in life? What is the purpose of my life? These are all questions to be answered. We are not supposed to just work like slaves. We are working with a particular goal in mind. So whether he is a householder or whether he is working as an employee or for employment, or whether he is working in the monastery as a monk because of the obligation which he has towards society. So Holy Mother says, since there is a kind of obligation, Naren has started these organizations where you can get rid of your karma by doing karma yoga. So karma yoga is also an option. So since you cannot do meditation, you cannot do Raj Yoga or the restraining of the mind all throughout the day, you try to combine the work, do it as karma yoga, do it for the sake of the Lord, and at the same time do the japa, do some kind of bhakti yoga. If you combine karma yoga with bhakti yoga, that is what Vireshwaran used to say. I'll come to a beautiful example. Once uh, Swami Vireshwaranji was, in those days, they did not have employees in Advaita Ashrama. So all the parcels, all the letters, every day hundreds of parcels had to be packed, books had to be packed, and they had to post it, and they had to write the addresses by hand. There were no typewriters in those days. It was all manual work. So every order had to be received, the letters had to be opened, the address had to be written, and as a result, there was so much of workload, and there were not enough monks. So Swami Vireshwarananji was once asked, see, you used to do so much of work, and then these brahmacharis used to complain that we have so much of activity. We don't get time for meditation. We don't get time for doing all this japa. As then Swami Vireshwaranji told them, you see, you can have different approaches. How you approach work, how do you convert it into work as worship? That also is very important, because without that you will find all these duties monotonous. You will feel that once I finish the duties, then let me do some japa and meditation. They have their own place. In the morning you do japa, and every person has to do that. He has to have a combination. Whenever he is free, he can do japa. Whenever he is more free, he can read books, he can have satsang, or he can even do some bhajans or some devotional song which will take care of the emotional side of the mind, or he can do work, some altruistic work or some charitable work, or if not, at least the duty which one does, we can do it with the right spirit as a worship of God. So that is also a means. Karma yoga is also a means to work out your karma and to develop spiritually. So he says, one day Mani Malik visited a sadhu and reported to the master. Well, said the master, how did you like him? Yes, said Mani. I saw the sadhu, but the master asked, what is that but? All want money. Mani Malik replied. The master said, how much does a holy man? Now, this Mani Malik used to come to Thakur. Thakur used to also make fun, because I don't charge anything. People come here. He knew that people have a lot of attachment to their money. So, Sri Ramakrishna used to say most of the religious places have systems for donation. There are plates where you have to donate. So people hesitate to go if they are so much attached to their money, they don't want to part with their money. So they avoid going to religious places and give all sorts of excuses. So also Mani Malik was very fond of his money, did not want to do. So he did not like, because some sadhu asked him for some money because he was in need. Perhaps he was hungry, he was wanted some money. Then Mani Malik started telling the master that I don't go to that sadhu. He had come here, but he asks money. Then Sri Krishna said, what is this? If he asks for a little money, what is the problem? All Then the master said, how much the money does a holy man? He's not asking you for thousands of rupees. He's just asking for something so that he can eat. Perhaps a pice for his uh, tobacco to smoke. In those days, most of the monks who were wandering, because they used to live in the cold, they used to smoke some tobacco. Food they would get free, but what about when they felt cold? They had to smoke. So that's all. You need your cups of ghee and milk, a mattress, a very cozy mattress, and all the luxuries. And when sadhus want a pice for their smoke, should they not have it? Why can't you give? Their needs are so less. They live such uncomplicated lives, such simple lives. And if they ask for little money, why are you hesitant? You have so much money, and you are staying. You want everything. If you miss your tea, and if you miss your ghee and milk and all the luxurious items, you get upset. And if they want something for their own use, why should they not have it? Then the disciple says, enjoyments come from desire alone. A man may live in a four-storied mansion, but he does not really enjoy anything if he has no desire for it. Now, And a man may live under a tree, but if he has desire, he gets all enjoyments from that alone. The master used to say, a person may have no relatives anywhere, but Mahamaya may cause him to keep a cat and thus make him worldly. Such is her play. Now, he is quoting from the gospel. So in the gospel, somebody said that uh, if you have a lot of money and property, the attachment is very natural. But Sri Ramakrishna said not necessary. Janaka lived in a palace. He was not attached to anything. He was full of knowledge. He had no desire to enjoy. And a man may live under a tree. He may live under a tree because he doesn't have a home, a homeless person, but he is having a lot of desire. So what's the use? So that's why if he may not have any relatives, he may just live with a dog or cat. He wants somebody to be a companion. So he will just live with the cat. So some kind of attachment, that is holy the divine mother's play. Mother said that is true. Everything is due to desire. What bondage is there for a man who has no desire? You see, I live with all these things, but I do not feel any attachment. No, not in the least. She was living with Radhu, she was living with so many people, but she always appeared to be a detached person. She never, not only appeared, she was totally detached to all the things. She was calm, she had absolutely taken control of her reactive mind. There was no reaction. She used to bear everything quietly and do whatever was necessary with lot of wisdom, lot of prudence, and lot of uh, 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 foresight. She used to do all the work. She was never seen avoiding any kind of duty or responsibility which fell upon her after the passing away of the master. She had to do so many things. The master had told her, Sri Ramakrishna had told her, that after I go, don't depend on anybody. Go to Jairambati, grow some vegetables, and with whatever little rice was grown, you take it as food and just maintain yourself. But don't ask anything from anybody. And she lived like that. Whatever 7 rupees per month which Sri Ramakrishna had arranged, even that was stopped by some confusion. Somebody had stopped giving that. So even she did not ask for her dues. She just went on whatever was left, whatever rice was grown there, that she lived a very simple and frugal life even when she was in Jairambati. But when Swami Shardanji arranged this Udbodhan building and so many things much later. Of course, that was much later. But all through this, whether she was living in Jairambati or Kamarpukur or the different places where the direct disciples, especially Shardananji, had arranged for her to stay, she was totally detached. She was doing all her activities, very active, but at the same time she was detached. Then disciple, indeed, you can have no desires. How many, but you see how many insignificant desires crop in our mind. Now, Rasbihari Maharaj is becoming very realistic. He says, it's okay for you, but what about us? Every moment, so many desires are coming in our mind. How can we get rid of them? Now, this is a very important question. It is a fact, nobody can deny the fact that these desires are the result, these desires result in trouble and sorrow if they are not fulfilled. And there is no end to desires. So even if you have money, if you have wealth, if you have possessions, somehow you will find that you end up by not enjoying them because further desires are there to get more. And in that mad rat race, one does not enjoy what one has. And that the desire inside does not allow us to enjoy what, or maybe even to make use of whatever things we have, and we expect more and more and more. So he says, uh, but at the same time she is assuring this brahmachari. He says so many insignificant desires. Of course, they don't, this brahmachari Rasbihari Maharaj did not have such desires as, because he was already a renowned, but there are other smaller desires, to eat this, to eat that. Perhaps he was speaking of that. They are not major desires. So Holy Mother is making a distinction between major desires and minor desires. He says, how can we get rid of them? Mother says, in your case, these are no real desires. They are nothing. They are mere fancies that appear and disappear in the mind. The more they come and go, the better for you. So, Holy Mother used to give a beautiful example. She used to say, why these desires? Now, after 4 minutes, uh, this session will end. So I'll just reconnect. I request all of you to reconnect because after 40 minutes, this Zoom session will end. So I'll restart it again and then we'll have this talk for some time and then a little question answer. So if it stops, please don't hesitate to reconnect. It will take just a minute to reconnect. I'll start the session again. There's still 4 minutes, so I'll continue. So, Holy Mother is telling the disciple that these are just fancies. Don't be worried about the desires that you have because he had already renounced the world. He had no major desires, but the small desires which used to come, she is giving the reason why such desires come. Why such desires come to a person. She says, in suppose there is a reel and you have these reels, you have rolled different threads, red colored threads, the black colored thread, the blue colored threads, different colored threads are there. And finally, you want to remove all those threads and go back. You want the white thread which was there at the bottom. After that, you have rolled so many threads. Each of these thread represents a certain desire, for example. Now, if you want to go to the white thread, which is not a very harmful desire, then you have to remove all the desires. So these desires will come and go. So also the mind, we have thought so many things, we have desired so many things that these fleeting desires will come and go. So the more they come and more they go, you just watch. They are nothing. They are fancies. So this is a very great psychological truth where Holy Mother says, just consider them as just fancies. They are not real desires. Unless the will is attached to the thought. You see, when a thought comes to the mind, you can't say it is a desire. When there is an emotion attached to that, as I told you, there are four faculties of the human mind. The first faculty is the thinking capacity. So, day and night, when we see objects, when we come in contact with objects, we see things. But that doesn't mean it is a desire. It will come and it will go. You have to just watch it. If you just watch it unemotionally, then there is no harm. But once the emotion get attached, then the desire, that thought becomes doubly powerful. Then it is slowly now becoming, trying to become a desire. It's not still a desire. Then the willpower comes into the picture, the third faculty of the mind. When the willpower get attached to the thought along with the emotion, then you feel like, say for example, a person likes to eat a sweet. He sees a sweet, that is a thought comes that I should eat that sweet. But then he starts getting feeling for that. Oh, I should eat it. I should. So the moment feeling comes to the mind, the thought becomes more stronger. Then when the willpower comes, he just gets up. He takes the. He cannot restrain anymore. So the restraining power, when it becomes less, that desire becomes dangerous. But appearance of the desire is by itself is not harmful unless it is supported by the other three faculties of the mind. So this is the psychology. That's why mother says, don't worry, they are just thoughts. And the more such thoughts come, the more the samskaras go away, the better for you. So now I think there's less than a minute. So once the session closes, I'll uh, start again. We'll continue from where we left. So here Holy Mother is trying, we will discuss the fact which Holy Mother is telling how desires crop up and how they are to be controlled. So Mother is assuring, Holy Mother is assuring Rasbihari Maharaj that don't worry, the desires which you think are harmful desires, they are not so harmful, because in your case, they are just thoughts. They are passing thoughts which have to be just witnessed and allowed to die down by itself. So they can't cause harm unless you attach your emotion to that. So, for every desire to be harmful, to cause, he says, since he says it's all because of desires. Now, how to tackle these desires? So, Holy Mother is giving a wonderful psychological solution. She's saying that these thoughts, they will come and go. The disciple then says, yesterday I wondered how I could fight with my mind unless God assured me of his protection. The moment one desire disappears, another crops up. So now is since Swami uh, uh, Rasbihari Maharaj is Arupananda, is in the beginning of his sadhana. Naturally, the old samskaras keep on propping, and then these thoughts come to him. Especially when you meditate, you will find that desires, these thoughts, these are not desires. They can be called as real desires or dangerous desires only if all the four faculties are attached to that. When the desire, when you try to fulfill, finally, when you try to fulfill the desires, you will find that they become harmful. Otherwise, just a passing thought is not going to make any difference. So that's why Holy Mother tells something very significant. She says, so long as the ego exists, desires also undoubtedly remain. Now, that is what I discussed in our Raj Yoga class. That when we attach our ahankara or the ego to the reactive mind, which is full of thoughts, reactive mind means you see something and you react. So, the ego, if it is, that's why Mother says, as long as the ego exists, the desires also undoubtedly remain. They remain because they get their sustenance, they get their power, they get. So, ego is nothing but that will which tries to convert those desires into actions. So you are not only emotionally attached, but you are thinking of something, emotionally you are getting attached to that, and finally the ego also get attached, the willpower also get attached, and then finally it becomes harmful. But those desires will not injure you. The master will be your protector. But if you have the pakami, or the ripe ego, there are two types of ego, as I told you. The raw ego, which is which says I want to fulfill that and goes after these things, and there is the ripe ego, which is a companion of buddhi. When the buddhi is awakened by constant spiritual practice, the buddhi, the japa is the only reason why we do japa is they try to subdue that desire at the root. And not only that, they don't allow them to assume dangerous proportions. They do not allow these thoughts to become very powerful desires which you cannot resist. So that is the whole purpose of restraining, the purpose of yoga. So he says those desires will not injure you, the master will be your protector. Because there is one overpowering desire, that I am a child of God, or I am a devotee of God and I should not be doing this. So the master will protect you by strengthening your mind and telling you again and again, creating a wave of thought in your mind, saying that you are a child of uh, your or child, or maybe you are a devotee of your Ishta and you should not be doing this. So all these things, they help you, this ripe ego, the Pakami, as it is explained in Bengali, that helps you to hold on to a higher desire. That is, a devotee of Thakur, a worshipper of Sri Ramakrishna, or a just a worshipper of God, or one who is having a higher pursuit. So the Buddhi tells you that these are transitory things. These are this, you cannot satiate this. It is, the more these thoughts come, the more it will disturb you. So the Buddhi tells, don't let your lower ego come in contact with those reactive mind, and you just remain aloof. And when you remain aloof, you will find that slowly your ripe ego comes into it starts functioning, and that attaches itself with the chitta or the samskaras, the good samskaras come to your help. Those noble samskaras, that I am a noble person, I am a devotee of Thakur, I am a child of Thakur, so I should not be doing that. So some people call it the voice of conscience, which tell you what is Shreya, what is Preya. Preya, that it appears to be good, but I know it is bad. It is not good for me. It appears to be pleasant. It may be pleasant, but it is not good. So that discrimination to choose between Shreya and Preya is a result of this higher ego. And we read about these great people whom we consider to be our ideal, Sri Ramakrishna or any other god or goddess whom we consider as an ideal. So the teachings and the wonderful message of those ideals inspire us to choose what is good rather than choose what is pleasant. So that discrimination helps us to hold on to higher desires, and this holding on to the higher desires, this higher wave, as it were, kills the lower wave and kills or diminishes the effect of the lower desires. That is what Holy Mother says. The master will be your protector. It will be a heinous sin on the part of the master if he does not protect those who have taken shelter at his feet, who have taken refuge in him, renouncing all, who want to lead a good life. So, this is a very great assurance Holy Mother is giving, that once you hitch your wagon to somebody who is all powerful, is all good, and if he doesn't help you in times of trouble, if he doesn't help you to control your desires, and if you have taken a resolution that you will lead a good life, then all these samskaras, the chitta, the buddhi which is being attached to the good samskaras which you have created by continuous repetition of the holy name, by prayers, by reading good books, by satsanga, and all those things. These are the different ways and means to create positive vibrations, to create positive thoughts, or to create positive samskaras, which will come to your aid, and they will automatically suppress these lower desires. So the moment the desires come, so many desires may come, which will not be fulfilled in this life, and all these desires are coming and harassing us. So what happens is, these desires, even if they come, they will be subdued by this big desire, the desire to get mukti, or desire to have devotion to the at the holy feet of the Lord. So that's why he says, if you seek protection, for that you have to be really sincerely seek the protection. And she says, if you have sincerely worshipped God, or with the idea of taking shelter in Him, if you have surrendered to God, then it will be injustice on His part. This is Holy Mother who's saying, said Thakur cannot leave you in the lurch like that. If you have really surrendered to Him, He has to come and help you in whatever situation you are. You must live in a spirit of self surrender to Him. Let Him do good to you if you so desires, or let him drown you if that be his will. But you are to do only what is righteous, and that also according to the power he has given you. So she is so practical in her advice that don't uh, try to uh, worry, don't try to be anxious, because once you have surrendered, once you have created this wonderful wave of continuous japa or prayer and all those things, that samskara or that thought wave is so powerful that the master will see that it is sufficient to prevent you or to protect you from the dangerous thoughts, to protect you from the ills, protect you from the evils. Whatever may be the situation, situations may not always to be, as I told you, there may not be pleasant situations always. There's a difference between the pleasant and the good. There are certain unpleasant things also which are ultimately good for us. So the master will see that he gives us only that which is good. Ultimately, it is good. And he also gives us the strength that is important according to the power he has given you. You see, he has given different powers to different people, and we should slowly try to increase that power which he has given us. That helps us to have a control over our thoughts, which, though appearing to be very pleasant, ultimately it leads to destruction. The Shreya and the Preya. The prayer tries to tell us that these are the things you should run after, these are the things you should acquire. It is the nature of the mind, it is the old samskaras which keep coming up. But at the same time, there is another side aspect of the mind, the buddhi, which tells you no, the experience tells you, experience of the people who are living in the world, they tell you that this is what is happening in most of the cases. So you have to be careful. But then, when there is a seesaw battle between the two tendencies, the two samskaras, it is the tendency, it is the power of prayer, the power of japa that will save you. That's what she's saying. The master, you have to surrender to him, and then you'll see that he will have to come and protect you. So, disciple says, have I, O mother, surrendered to him to that extent? So he is himself doubting now. Is my surrender real? Is asking mother, Arupananda, in a very simple and uncomplicated way, he says, have I reached that state where I have surrendered to him? Or I still doubt him? I still have no faith in him. Sometimes I feel that I can depend upon him to a small extent. But then next moment it disappears. Then I don't have that faith anymore. What will be the way for us if he does not protect us? In that case, suppose I lose faith, then what will be our condition? Will we lose our way? Will you stop protecting us? Sometimes I think that because you, O Mother, are alive, we can report our dangers and difficulties to you and gain peace by a look at your face. Who will protect us when you leave us? We shall feel safe if you give us assurance. Now, because Holy Mother is his Guru, he sees her face to face. He has faith in her and he can get the answer immediately if he has any doubt. But he says, if you are not there, then how can I know whether I have really surrendered to Thakur and that Thakur will really protect you? Now I have no problem because I can come to you. So, see the answer. Mother assures, at least he wants an assurance that what will happen to me after you go. Mother says, don't be afraid, my child. You have nothing to fear. You will not lead a worldly life with wife and children. You will have none of these. Why should you fear? The moment you are single, you are free. Since you are not doing this, why are you so much afraid? What else is there to be afraid? If you were in bondage, then I would have understood. That's what she's saying. You will have none of these. Why should you fear? And in the meantime, before I depart, you will be able to build up a secure foundation for your spiritual life. So she is assuring that since you have given up everything for his sake, you have not entered into more and more bondage. Please don't worry. I will make everything before I leave. I will make up, I'll see that you build up a secure foundation. So this secure foundation will be enough for you to sustain even if I go. So Holy Mother seems to be assuring Ras Bihari Maharaj because he's afraid. Now I have any problem, I go to the mother. But afterwards, what will happen? She says, don't worry, I will take care of that. Disciple says, what will japa and austerity avail us if God does not cast his grace or benign look upon us? We shall be protected only if he protects us. Then Holy Mother again assures, you have nothing to fear. The Master will certainly protect you. Don't worry. So, this is the assurance Holy Mother is given. This is the assurance which every Guru gives the disciple. Because once we have that developed that faith, it is our own faith that helps us. Maybe the Guru is an instrument. Maybe Holy Mother says that don't worry, it will be there because she knows the power of Sri Ramakrishna, the power of depending on Lord. Any Ishta, it may be Krishna, it may be Rama, it may be Ramakrishna. But when we consider the Supreme to be our protector, not human beings to be our people who will protect you. If we depend on temporary on transient people or transient things, then they may not give us permanent protection. But if we worship the permanent, if we worship the eternal, who is eternally with us, eh, whether uh, now or ever, because when you say God is eternal, when he is Satchidananda, he is of the nature of consciousness which will never diminish. He is of the nature of joy which will never diminish. And since we are in the protection of that reality, whom we are worshipping as our Ishta, then it is the Ishta's the duty to protect us. So that is the great philosophy of self-surrender, which is given so much importance in the scripture known as Bhagavata. The whole of Bhagavata says, when he says Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam, when they say, they put their whole faith, their whole security, their whole solace, their peace, and everything depends on the attachment they have for Krishna. The word Krishna itself is that which attracts. So Krishna is the great power which attracts. That's why Holy Mother said, here we have Rama as well as Krishna in the name of Thakur. So Krishna is the one who destroys our sins and protects us, destroys our desires and protects us. So when you give your whole dedicate your whole future, surrender your whole future to one who is eternal, who is all powerful, who is all loving, who is all graceful, and that thought becomes uppermost in your mind by constant practice, spiritual practice and japa, even while one is doing work. So Vireshwaranji said, when I was asked to do all the work, and in the midst of that, I did not forget to take the name of the Lord. Then he said, while I was writing addresses, he told something very significant. He said, it's a very simple task writing the addresses, but it used to occupy a lot of time. But I thought, why not make use of that? So he says, most of our Hindu names are named, and people are named after God. It represents some deity or some aspect of divinity. So he says, even in a small duty like writing the names or reading the names, addresses, I used to think of that aspect of God or reality. So that I used to always be in satsang, even if I'm doing a trivial job of writing envelopes, writing addresses, packing, and all those things. And on when I'm doing routine work, that is tying the thread and all, nobody can prevent you from doing japa. So the thing is, if we make this an habit, if this wave of repeating the holy name becomes an overpowering wave which can take care of the lower waves, the disturbing waves, the smaller desires which prop up now and then because of our old samskaras, if you are able to do it, then you will see, then Holy Mother, according to Holy Mother, you will find that he will protect you. That is how the Lord protects. It is our spiritual sadhana. The more we can surrender, the more we can remember him, and the more we can create a big wave in our mind which is very strong to subdue all other weaknesses, all uh, weak thoughts, the disturbing thoughts, that they have to be overpowered, and that overpowering can be done by cultivating the habit of remembering the Lord, practicing the presence of the Lord in every moment of our life. So, this is a very important thing. And she says, you have nothing to fear. The Master will definitely protect you if you surrender to Him. You don't have to worry. So, we'll stop here. The next conversation is 7 July 1912. Uh, so, this is a new topic. So, we will close for today. And if there are some questions, you can ask. Yeah. You can you can type in the chat also. Yeah. So the first question is, Holy Mother gives a lot of stress on purity of heart. Maharaj, could you please explain the characteristics of purity and practices to attain purity? Okay, this is a very good question. Holy Mother, of course, heart is the seat of our emotion. So as I told you before, that the thoughts by themselves, which are nothing but a reaction or maybe a wave in the reactive mind which come in contact with different objects and people of the world. So every moment you have to encounter something or the other, and that gives rise to different thoughts. Thoughts by themselves, as was clearly explained here, Holy Mother says that they are not, they are harmless, don't have to worry. But we have to control that through Raj Yoga. We have to see that there are Chitta Vritti Nirodha. We spoke about that in Raj Yoga yesterday. So you have to control those thoughts and not allow these thoughts to come. But in spite of our efforts, if these thoughts come, Holy Mother says just allow them to come and go. Don't be too much anxious about that. Why these thoughts are coming? Why they... Now the question is purity of the heart. What does it mean? Purity of the heart means the purifying nature of our emotional of our emotions. When you the purifying effect which the mantra has, the prayers have, especially prayers. Mantra also will do it if it is done with lot of yearning and devotion to the Lord. Devotion is an Bhakti yoga is a yoga through which you purify your emotions. Normally, emotions are many. You know, we have fear, we have anger, we have jealousy, we have so many hundreds and hundreds of emotions which attach to the objects that we see, the things that we see, the people whom we encounter every day. So these emotions, purification here means purified heart, or purification here means that you don't let those emotions to get attached to the thought in such a way that they result in action. The purified emotion will say, the purified, by purification you mean you create a counter emotion. It is known as, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, it is known as Pratipaksha Bhavana, thinking of the opposite thought. Suppose there is a thought of fear, constant thoughts of fear come to you. Then you say, no, I should not fear because I have been protected by the Lord. I am the child of Lord, so how can I fall into danger? Then again that thought of fear will come. Then you subdue it again by the help of your japa, by help of remembrance, that you are surrendering to the God. You are practicing the presence of God. If He is there, then why should you fear? Then again, some object will come, some person will come. Again, that fear will try to raise its head. So purification of the heart just means that don't let your emotions get the better of you. Don't let the emotions get better of you. Try to subdue those emotions and drown it in the higher emotion, that is the grace of God, the grace that you feel. You feel, everybody feels that the God, that you are close to God. That attachment to the God will create an emotion. You have to develop a kind of relationship. Sri Ramakrishna used to call it as bhava. So there are different bhavas, Vatsalya bhava or the Santana bhava. Santana bhava is the feeling which a child feels for his or her mother. When that feeling becomes overpowers the fear of feeling of fear. When a child is too much is attached to the mother, is very confident and has so much love for the mother, then he doesn't fear anybody. He knows that if somebody comes to harm me, my mother is there to protect me. So he is actually, what he is doing, not that the fear doesn't come to him, the thought of fear comes, but he is trying to overpower it by a higher thought, which is love for God, or love for God as the mother or father, some kind of relationship. Since we understand human emotions, since we are dealing with human emotions, in our case, the purity of emotions is to convert those human emotions into divine emotions. So, a emotion which is attached to God is a divine emotion, and the Pratipaksha Bhavana, the opposite emotion, means when there is fear, there is the emotion of fearlessness you have as a child of your Ishta, which overpowers the lower fear, and then you get rid of it. That is how one has to purify. So, uh, how to organize? So, that is how, what is purity of mind means purification of the emotions, purity of the heart. Sorry, purity of the heart means purification of the emotions by converting our lower emotions into higher emotions of self, which are like self surrender to God, faith in Him, dependence on God, depending on His grace. So these are the higher emotions we have to cultivate. These don't come in a day. It has to be cultivated by repeated sadhana and practice of and spiritual practices. Now the other question is, how to organize an everyday routine that does not disturb our spiritual practice, how to organize our routine in a way that outside facts don't disturb that much. Now, these are uh, the routine is, is something which is not possible for everybody. If you are living in the world, there are so many emergencies, there are so many different tasks which we have to do. Routine is possible only for people who are, say, like living in the monastery, who have a fixed set of duties. Apart from that, they are not supposed to do. But when you live in the world, there will be emergencies. There will be different natures of the work which you have to do. Sometimes you have to go out, you have to do some social visit, or maybe some emergency visit. So you don't have to be a stickler to follow a routine, but more or less, if the routine helps you in many ways, it first helps you to organize your life and see that lot of restless and disturbing thoughts don't come. Because if you have fixed, if whenever it is possible, there are certain times during the day and also before you sleep where you have that time. Every day you have that time for yourself. First you have to find out how much time you can spare for yourself after spending it for the other activities which are mandatory for us. If you have a job, you have to have some kind of, but the personal time you get, if you see, a routine is possible only for that period. So if you can start with early morning, it is a good habit to first be very open with the Lord and tell him that today these are the activities I am doing, please see that I do it perfectly. And before you leave the house, in case you are leaving the house, now most of us are indoors, so even if you are going out, you can develop an attitude where you can uh, tell the Lord. So the day preferably should begin with remembering the Lord and asking for his grace, or the Ishta's grace, to keep that spirit, to try to see his presence even in unpleasant situations when you interact with people outside. And when you come back, whatever good or bad you were forced to do during your period outside, you can have a routine. These are the simple things which you can follow. You come back and make an analysis of whatever you have done and then ask the Lord to see that all these difficulties which I faced yesterday, I don't have to face them tomorrow. So that way you will find this routine will help. This routine of, even Holy Mother used to say that just as a money lender, at the end of the day, he just takes a stock of whatever balance he has, how much he has given, how much he has taken. So also every person before doing japa or after doing japa in the evening, he has to analyze how many situations were there when I lost my temper, how many situations were there when different things, different issues arose and I was not able to handle them properly. So we get a feeling, we try to develop a feeling or closeness with the Lord and tell him, see, these are the things. It is easy, very easy, if we surrender and uh, tell the Lord to help us in all these things, because these are all difficult things. The Lord can help us in various ways. Being the cosmic person, he can make adjustments so that these problems do not repeat. He can not only strengthen our mind but also strengthen our capacity to resist all these things and to undergo all these difficulties and not be disturbed by them. So he takes care of our mind, he takes care of others' mind, because he is the possessor of the universal mind. That is why Swami Vivekananda told something very significant. He says, all you have to do is manifest the divinity within, and everything else will be harmoniously arranged around you. So we don't have to change the situations. We don't have to go on changing the situations. We have to just develop, have faith in the Lord and depend on His grace and continue to repeat the prayer. And you will find in strange ways, situations outside which appear to be very difficult, they start easing, they start becoming less and less difficult. This, you have to have faith, because he is the possessor of the cosmic mind. He knows what are our difficulties, what are the other difficulties which we have to encounter because of our karma. We'll have to face so many issues, so many problems, partly because of our karma and partly because that is the will of the Lord, whichever way you uh, interpret it. But for that also, if we have faith in the Lord, then the cosmic mind has a tendency to create a situation, to create some kind of harmony wherever we go. Suppose you were supposed to have some kind of disharmonious incident out when you go out, you will find that that day perhaps the effect of that disharmony would be reduced to certain extent if you have the practice the presence of God. It comes by practice, one can easily see. So that is the only routine we can have is when we are dealing with our own sadhana, our own spiritual practices. We can reserve some time, do our best, and then allow the Lord to harmonize things around us. Okay? Yeah. Is the interactions in the reactive mind, whether good karma yoga or unserving lower animal desires, are they the same as Advaita Vedanta samskaras? Samskaras are samskaras. They do not depend on which system you believe. Samskaras is something which has come, which is common for all. Shankaracharya also accepts it. All there is no system. Samskaras are something very scientific. They are the old habits. To put it in a very simple way, they are old habits. They are impressions which are created in our mind. They are old habits which have been frozen, which have been stored. Whatever data you have put, that will be stored in the computer. So also in our chitta, all the samskaras are stored. And they have a tendency to come up when you stimulate the mind. So we have to see that these interactions, this reactive mind, why is our mind reactive? Because of the chitta, because of the chitta which has the manas is a function of the chitta. The whole mind stuff, as Swamiji says, it reacts in different ways. The same person may react in a different way because of his samskaras. So these samskaras, they are the same whether you follow Advaita Vedanta or follow the path of devotion as per Holy Mother. So there is no confusion in that. Shankaracharya does not define any other samskaras. The samskaras, word samskaras mean the same. It is very simple thing. It is our habit. Whether you have done it consciously or unconsciously, a habit has been formed and we have to overcome it with a counter habit. And the counter habit is spiritual practices or prayers. These are known as the counter habits to solve the problem of our habits which are troubling us. So the only counter habits are our spiritual practices. Now, so there is one more question. I think we'll end. Uh, the difference between the purified heart and the yearning that is described in bhakti. No, they are not very different, because what is yearning? Yearning cannot come when there is no purification in the heart. When you say the heart is pure, when the heart becomes childlike, while when the heart becomes uncomplicated, then the Lord Himself manifests, because He is the essence of our soul. He is the soul of our souls, the Paramatma. The Jivatma is supported by the Paramatma. When you remove all the dirt around it, when you try to purify it, what you see the bottom, as Rajoga says, when there is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, when the lake is very calm, you see the bottom. So you don't have to create, that is already there. So this yearning is actually possible only if the heart is purified. So they are interdependent. Purified at heart and yearning is the same. If you don't have yearning, the heart will not be purified. If you don't have a purified heart, you will not yearn. So they are all both depending on each other. So I think I'll take your leave. Yeah. So somebody says Tushar thinks that the Advait Vedanta has its own samskaras. Samskaras is impressions. Am I right? Yes. So that's what I explained. So somebody has uh, tried to explain what you were asking. So Advait Vedanta doesn't have its own samskaras. There is only common samskaras cannot be, yes, they have to be, they are part of Vedanta. Actually, the idea of samskaras are there more in yoga. You see, Vedanta is the philosophy, Advait Vedanta is a philosophy, and yoga is the science, is the technology. It is like Advait Vedanta is the science, and we use yoga as a technology to practice these Advaitic principles. So wherever the mind is involved, yoga is involved. And samskaras uh, are part of this yoga because that is the technology. That is a word given by Patanjali. He calls it kleshas also. There are many terms, these terms are interchanged and used. But for a Swami Vivekananda has explained it as that man is nothing but a bundle of habits. So our thoughts are nothing because of the habits which we have formed. We have thought in a particular way. Holy Mother explains it, all the different colored threads. So we have thought in a particular way. Every thought, with emotion or without emotion, or with will, without will, the more the emotion is attached to the thought, the more the will is attached to the thought, it becomes a deeper samskara. So samskara will be there, but the light samskaras, they are harmless. But the deep samskaras, see the example which is given is somebody likes to eat a sweet. He sees sweet every day, but he has a strong willpower, he doesn't eat it. So he has not formed a samskara. He sees the maybe there is a desire in him to eat it also, but his will is so strong, which has been developed, so he decides that I should not eat it. But if he gives way to his desire and his emotions overpower the thought, then he goes and eats it. His willpower becomes weak and it creates a deeper samskaras. So, for a samskara to be deep, all the three faculties of the mind have to combine. And this is a philosophy which you will find, the Klesha philosophy in the yoga, which we will come to in our Friday class. So, I take your leave. There is less than 1 minute left. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.